Good morning and welcome, candidates, all of you who are in the audience and those viewing us at home. As a courtesy to all present, please silence your cell phones. All 5 seats of the Johnson County Board of Supervisors will be on the ballot this year due to a new law passed by last year's legislative session. It requires that Johnson County be divided into 5 districts and that 1 representative will be elected from each district to comprise the full Board of Supervisors. Johnson County voters will Johnson County voters will be able to vote for only 1 member on the board based on where they live. For those of you who are in the audience today, please note we have these FAQ things up at the table behind me if you have further questions. Today is the primary race candidate forum for the Democratic nomination for Johnson County Board of Supervisors, District 5. District 5 includes University Heights and parts of West and South Iowa City. This will be a 4-year term. Both candidates today are members of the Democratic Party. The Republican position on the ballot is not contested. I'm Shannon Patrick, a member of the League of Women Voters of Johnson County, and I will be moderating today's forum. The forum is being live streamed on Facebook, and it is also being filmed for rebroadcast on the 3 public education and government channels in Iowa City, Coralville, and North Liberty. Please check their websites for scheduling. The League of Women Voters is a volunteer, nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes any party or candidate, which is why we have the policy that campaign literature is welcome outside the room following the forum, and that no buttons, signs, or literature can be worn or distributed inside this room. The League does take positions after considerable study of issues and acts to influence decision makers on those issues. We work not only to register voters, but also to provide them with information on issues and to assist their participation in government. Membership is open to anyone 16 years of age or older. Join us. We can use your time, your talent, and your financial resources. League members advocate and inform voters. Democracy works best when more people are involved. Find us at www.lwvjc.org. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates. All viable candidates have been invited to participate. After the candidates have been introduced, they will each have 2 minutes to provide opening remarks. We will then present questions to them, starting with 1 from the League and followed by 1 submitted on cards by you in the audience. League members are distributing cards and pencils for you to write questions on. You may submit as many written questions for the candidates as you wish. Hold up the cards and a League member, like magic, will appear and collect them throughout the forum and bring them to me to read. Questions that fall into the same category may be consolidated. Judging by the number I have, will be consolidated. If time does not allow for all questions to be addressed, you may contact the candidates directly after the forum or another time. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. Due to the time frame, there will not be time for rebuttals. Near the end of the scheduled time for this event, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. Speaking order will be rotated throughout the morning. Cassie Eisenhofer, League member, is our timekeeper today, using cards to alert candidates when time is up and when time is about to be up. Joe Riley and Mandy Remington are seeking the District 5 position on the Democratic ballot. One of these candidates will advance to the general election in November. Audience members, please write your questions on the cards provided and pass them to a League member who will advance them to me. Let's get started with opening statements. Please speak directly into your mics so that you can be heard both in the room and over the broadcast. Let's begin with a 2-minute opening statements, starting with Joe Riley.
Good morning, and thank you, Shannon, for moderating. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us today. My name is Joe Riley. I've been a resident here in Iowa City for 20 years. I'm looking to bring to this position a lot of my work that I've already laid out over the last 2 decades in my work-life experience and volunteer experience. In my work with the Iowa City Downtown District currently, I want to make sure that we bring more economic development to our rural and Main Street areas. I've seen a lot of programs that work for us here at the downtown district, along with the city, working adjacent with the city, while working in partnership with things at the county as well. So I'm very familiar with government process, implementation, programs that start from ideation to fully fledged ideas. And I know when to ask the right questions and poke those holes when people aren't maybe thinking the process through. That's also a skill that a supervisor should have. Along with that, previously to the Iowa City Downtown District, I worked with an employee group at the Cedar Rapids Airport. I managed a group of transportation worker union employees for 5 years, managing budgets, compliance with our FAA, DOT, building safety culture, building work culture. I think that's something that our supervisors need to have as well. Be supportive of our work of our employees, guide them in their work, let them lead, don't micromanage. Also, when you look at my campaign literature and you read about me and you see there's some cogs on my logo, that's about the work I do, but that's also about us. And that's about we're closer together than we are further apart. And we need to, as a county, shut out all the noise on the outside and come together and focus on our own test. Thank you.
All right. Mandy Remington, your opening statement.
Yes, thank you all for being here, and thank you to the League and the Senior Center for hosting. I moved to Johnson County when I was 14, joined the West High debate team. I had my first child at 20 and ran an in-home daycare for a few years before working at the University of Iowa for 18 years, where I served in a wide variety of leadership roles, including as chair of the Council on the Status of Women, the Center for Disabilities and Development DEI Committee, and the University of Iowa Safety and Security Committee. I have now served as your county supervisor for just over a year, and I ran for office because I believe government should be representative of the people it serves. Having lived in Johnson County as a student, a small business owner, a domestic violence survivor, and a single parent of children with disabilities, I intimately understand the experiences of some of our most vulnerable because I've lived them. I know what it means to navigate our systems from the outside, and I know what it's like to struggle to make ends meet in Johnson County. That's also why I founded the Corridor Community Action Network in 2019 to facilitate resident participation and empowerment while improving the quality of life throughout the corridor. That community organizing background made it really natural for me to start networking as soon as I stepped into office. So I've spent the last year developing relationships with other elected officials and local governments from around the country, sharing what works and what doesn't, and building off of each other's efforts to make all of us stronger. That is relational work that takes time, yet it has already allowed me to bring new resources and services to Johnson County. So I'm running again to ask for more time to fully develop those relationships and make sure that we fully see the benefits from them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. This first question is from the League of Women Voters. With the change in the law, Johnson County has been divided into 5 districts, each of which will elect their own county supervisor. The elected supervisors will join the Johnson County Board of Supervisors and work for both the district and the county. How will you balance the expectations of your district with county-wide needs? How do you expect this change to affect the work of the board? And first, Ms. Remington.
Yes, so currently I hold and have held constituent chats throughout the entire county on a weekly basis. I think that it's important to go to where people are and make sure that they don't have to come to a county building and provide a public comment in order to reach their elected officials. I will still make an effort to get to the entire county as a District 5 representative, but I will focus those weekly chats more throughout the District 5. I think it is important to realize, though, that all 5 supervisors will still be making decisions that impact the entire county. And so my hope is that we will all be able to continue to keep that in mind and work together for the best interest of everybody in our community.
Well, I will say if you look at the map of District 5, it's about 80% city and 20% county. Or unincorporated areas. I just want to make sure that we, as the Board of Supervisors, where we have the most impact and influence, would be our unincorporated areas. Yes, there are still some services that our city residents receive, and we also have to work together as a part of these regions. I think the redistricting is actually an opportunity. I'm finding it's way easier to campaign and go to your doors and meet you and talk to you and hear you out. And if I were to be the supervisor for District 5, I would continue to have those talks, meetups, meet at your meetings, and be part of your day-to-day lives and listen and hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Our next question, the first from the audience. What are the principles or values that guide your decision-making, and why are you running? Starting with you, Mr. Riley.
Sure. I think consistency is definitely a value. I take that a lot from my previous life, work life at the airport. They had a policy called no waivers, no favors. You start to create a gray area, and then people exploit that. You give up the passenger in front of you a deal, the person behind them wants the same deal. We have to have standards and metrics that we are abiding to, and I think that's important. So if you, no matter who the resident is, who the citizen is, you're doing the same exact thing that you would for anybody else. The reason I'm running, I think that this county, what I've seen, it needs to have a stronger continuity of governance. I'm very interested in having a manager model or exploring that. From year to year, we could still have the same services provided no matter who's on the board. I think that my managerial experience prior to this gives me great insight about appreciating our employees, encouraging them in their work, but also just analyzing budgets. You know, I had to work at an airport for 5 years and be not in the black, not in the red, but in the black every month. And so that required me to look at cost lines, items, and make sure that we were on budget all the time, every time.
Yes, two of my biggest values in office are transparency and accessibility. If you look at the Iowa Code, it is our responsibility to ensure the welfare of our residents. And that is a lot easier to do when you make it easy for residents to talk to you, to be a part of local government, and to have their voices heard. And also when you have somebody in that seat who knows the resident experience and understands the system from both the inside and the outside, which I do and have based on both my struggles and my experience governing for the last year, as well as all of my previous leadership experience in our community.
Great. Let's move on to specific policy. A hot topic on the list here, combining. What is your position on the need for a new jail, and specifically, would you support or how would you support a jail bond? Starting with you, Ms. Remington.
Yes, so we do need a new jail. All 5 currently seated supervisors, we have all agreed on that. We have all voted to move that forward to the ballot. The jail will be on the same ballot that one of us will be on in November. So you as voters will have made the decision as to whether or not to move forward with that before another term starts. The current jail is in really bad condition, and it does need to be replaced. We have a responsibility to make sure that the folks who are housed there and the folks that are working there are safe. What I did not support was the increase in capacity that we are seeing. I think that we need to be focusing on balancing our investments in public safety and making sure that we're also investing in upstream supports that prevent people from entering incarceration in the first place. We've done a lot of work on that at the county level already, but there's a lot more that can be done.
Yes, I would be in support of building the new jail. I think also there needs to be a lot of preventative work and outreach along with that. But the jail itself, one, is outsized or not the right sized for the amount of people it has and employees that are working in there. I want to make sure that our employees for the county are safe while they're in there. But also, I want something that's a space where people have space to visit. There are people that are detained, waiting for their trial. There is areas and space for recreation that we can make it a humane space, but also a safe space for our employees, but also people that are waiting trial or have already been put in jail. I think that our county needs to, and still does, there are some preventative work that is going on out there that I really appreciate, such as Jessica Lang and her team and partnering with UAY and trying to get preventative programs out there that can deter people or defer people from that tract.
Great. Our next question. As Johnson County is one of the few growing in Iowa, is it time to hire a professional administrator? Why or why not? Starting with Mr. Riley.
As I said before, yes, I think so. I would be willing to explore the model. I think I see some value in that when I look at the Iowa City Council. From year to year, that person can be there to, one, make sure that you're on task for what the county is responsible to execute on, no matter who is in office, make sure we're providing the services that are required. And then they can also help and do that research and follow up with if there's any questions, special projects that maybe people want to explore. It just gives a better for our employees working at the county. It gives them a little bit more consistency in where their workload is and where they can continue and what they can pursue. And it's not so susceptible to shift changes in leadership at the board level.
I'm going to be completely transparent and say that that's an issue that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about lately, but have not settled on a decision on where I stand on that. I see a lot of potential benefits to that model. I also have not had a complete picture of what that would look like as far as cost to the county and the cascading effect that it would have on our current services and structures.
Our next question, please explain your views on the role and the impact it has on, the impact taxation has on affordability, starting with Ms. Remington.
Yes, the role of taxation on affordability?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yes, so the state every year provides guidelines related to our housing property taxes, and it affects how much we are able to ask and what we're able to do with that money in ways that are not very clear and in ways that really do impact our budget. And one of the things that they've done is create communications that are confusing as far as making assumptions of what your taxation is going to be that don't necessarily bear out. So we're getting notices that say that it's going to be higher than it is and things like that. But ultimately, all of the county money that we are able to spend on services, it comes from taxpayers, essentially. And so I'm having a hard time with the framing of that question, to be honest.
Sure. I think we need to be really sensitive about how we tax and what we spend. I think out meeting voters in the district, there are people on fixed incomes who are now on their retirement years or their twilight years, supposed to be the best time of their life. They are very sensitive and mindful about any raises in taxes. So if we are to create extra spending that creates more taxation, we need to have a reason and a justification for that to those people who aren't getting any more money, to be clear and frank and honest. So I just want to be really sensitive to that about taxation. That is affordability. We have to have a reason, and it has to have a benefit that goes back to the general public for public good.
All right. Our next question. Research demonstrates that the presence of a school resource officer contributes to more suspensions, expulsions, and arrests, as well as an increase in absenteeism and decreased graduation rates. In addition, the presence of SROs has severe and disproportionate consequences for Black, Indigenous, and Latinx students, as well as students with disabilities. Please share how you voted or would have voted for the request to partially fund an SRO at the Tiffin Middle and High School. Mr. Riley.
First off, when the whole process went down, I was a little disheartened that the people who were there to present all the facts and information were abruptly interrupted without completing their presentation. I think that we're hearing these studies, but we're also having an employee of 20 plus years with experience present this as it is a good idea, bringing in like communities that say, we're having this example here in a like community to Clear Creek, Amana, and we're having success. Also, there's statistics where they show a reduction in violence to students. They're also showing in that same presentation that the uptick of calls for service in violence to students is on the rise. I would be in favor of Clear Creek, Amana exploring that in their what is allotted in their full-time FTE for the city of Tiffin, for the sheriff. And then if they go through that whole process and at the end of the year, they want to continue that, then would be the time if the supervisors wanted to say no to that. But I think there is a whole bunch of information we're seeing out there. Cities like Tipton, Anamosa, Fort Dodge schools, Linmar, let's do a site visit. Let's see what's going on. Let's understand. We're hearing all this information, but we need to look at it all together because we're hearing conflicting reports. And why are all these other communities doing it if it's causing harm?
I voted no, and I will say that we actually did ask if there was statistics that they could provide us to show opposite of what our statistics showed that were provided to us by our social services director, and they did not. So there was no conflicting evidence. Also, I want to say that they do have, local control. I'm a big supporter of local control, and if Clear Creek Amana wants to use their own budget to support an SRO, they have every right to do that. But the county that's not a county issue. And if every school in Johnson County came to us and asked us to fund an SRO, we wouldn't be able to afford it. So it's a precedent that for just equity reasons alone, we can't afford to set.
I will say that's already
I'm sorry, we're not doing rebuttals.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. Next question. What do you see as the three primary responsibilities of the Board of Supervisors? Ms. Remington.
Yeah, so the Board of Supervisors is in charge of ensuring welfare, protecting the welfare and property of the county and its residents, and with ensuring the appropriate and responsible use of taxpayer dollars.
We enter into contracts, we pay contractors, we steward your tax dollars for the public good, and we maintain the infrastructure that you use in the county.
Right. Nice and concise. On to the next one then. Private equity investors have increasingly targeted manufactured housing communities, often leading to rising lot rents, displacement, and reduced housing stability for residents. What specific policies or actions would you support to protect residents from further harm caused by private equity ownership and to preserve long-term affordable housing in our county? Mr. Riley.
With our current state of manufactured homes in our community, it sounds like it is very much a state law that they can pursue. What I've seen with the Housing Coalition, talking about the grounds that are underneath these facilities, and they are responsible to maintain those. They're sinking in. So I did see the Lake Ridge Estate HOA or their community file complaints formally as a process on their way to a lawsuit if it goes any further and there's not action on that. I think for a local level here at the county, the existing ones, it is private. They do own it. I don't support private equity buying up homes at all. That doesn't make things affordable, and it doesn't seem like these people are getting their return on investment for their rent or their lot rent. I think if there are more in the future plans for development of manufactured homes, then that would be an opportunity for the county to maybe have some say on zoning or things that happen in that area.
Yes. So we have, as a board, been supporting the Residents United members of the manufactured home communities that are organizing themselves in the ways that they have asked us to, and will continue to do that. We have reached out to the manufactured home community owners and supporting Resident United's requests on multiple occasions. I actually lived in Regency when I was pregnant with my now 18-year-old and was not able to drink the water and didn't know if I could brush my teeth with it or not. It's only gotten worse since then, so this is something that I've experienced myself. I also think that we need to be doing a lot more looking into ways that we can maybe get that land out from the hands of these investors. And there are a lot of different levers that we could potentially pull for that, whether that is helping them find a way to path ship to ownership of their own land, whether that is the county finding a way to purchase that land and get it into somebody else's hands. Those are all things that I think that we need to be exploring.
And for our next question, should supervisors pay themselves over $100,000 in salary plus benefits? Ms. Remington.
No. I actually, one of the first things I did my first year as a supervisor when I took office was say that we didn't need raises. That first year, I did have some pushback on that. We did end up getting raises. This year, all 5 of us have agreed that we are not going to give ourselves raises this year. We do not need to be making 6 figures or more while we have community members who are struggling to pay the rent and put food on the table.
Yeah, it's a very high number. I would be in favor of actually looking at taking some pay from the supervisors to help fund the manager model of our board. But yeah, it is a high number, and it is very much brings in a question from our voters. What is it, especially when we're listed as 3/4 time? What is it that we do with $100,000 at 3/4 time? It sounds like a lot of money.
Next, can you tell us about what makes your district special and how long you've lived there? Starting with Mr. Riley.
I think the spirit of Iowa City is in District 5, and particularly when talking to voters door to door, it's people who've lived many different lives and worn many different hats. And I know we're a very highly educated community, but it's people who maybe life didn't work out the first time in their first career track, but then they just picked themselves back up and turned around and they're doing something phenomenal, amazing. And I think that's also part of the story of Iowa City too, is that we're resilient, we don't give up. And that's what I'm loving when meeting with the voters of District 5.
District 5 is one of the most diverse districts that we have. I've lived all over District 5 for many, many, many years now. I am going to be transparent and say that I'm currently just over the line. I'm halfway moved into my new house back in District 5, but I've spent more time living in District 5 than I have anywhere else in my life. I've lived in the South District for most of that time, which is a community that I absolutely love. I went to West High for many years and have lived in the area closer to West High as well, which is where I will again be soon. But yeah, I've been a very integrated part of the District 5 community since I was 14 years old, and I'm now 43 almost.
Great. Next one. Guns are a leading cause of death for children and teens in America. As a Be Smart for Kids partner, the county promotes secure firearm storage. Could the county also benefit from a gun violence prevention advisory committee? Ms. Remington.
Yeah, I think that that would be a really good committee for us to explore. That's not something that I've heard brought up before, but I am always all about getting more community members together, working on providing us with more information and suggestions for how we can do things better. And I know that gun violence is an issue. We provide gun locks in our free vending machines, harm reduction vending machines that we have throughout the community. We are part of that Be Smart partnership. And I think that we could also look at exploring things like safe storage options for people when they are going through crises and they know that maybe they shouldn't have access to their own firearm for a temporary period of time.
Absolutely, and I think it'd be a great public health initiative and fits right in with our public health office here in the county. Yes, to the harm reduction vending machines that you maybe see at places like Deadwood down in downtown. But I think that education is important, but people still have the right to own a firearm, but you have to be responsible with your firearm. It is yours. You must lock it up. So the more advocacy and education and outreach we can do, I think the better knowledge we could have as a community.
Excellent. For our next question, with property tax reforms being discussed actively in the legislature, it is possible that the county budget will be adjusted in the future. The needs are limitless, but the budget is not. How will you manage budget priorities as a county supervisor? Do you support maintaining a reserve fund? Starting with Mr. Riley.
Yes, maintain the reserve fund, but also I think the priority for myself as a supervisor is, one, we go to our core services that we're required to provide, but also if we're doing any granting or spending, I don't want to be duplicative of what maybe they're already getting from the city of Iowa City or Coralville or North Liberty, that we're targeting the people in our unincorporated areas and giving them the most value. That's where we have the most impact and influence on.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to have our reserves. We're currently actually a little over about $3.2 million above our target for reserves. So we are doing pretty well in that area. And that is something that we need to maintain while also making sure that we're not holding on to an excessive pile of money while our community members continue to struggle. So I think that that is definitely a balance that needs to be had. We need to make sure that we have enough money set aside in reserves to take care of economic situations that we cannot predict, any other future health crises or anything like that that comes up, but also make sure that we're meeting the needs that we have now with the finances that we have available.
Great. For what will be our last question before moving to closing statements, what action has been taken by the Board of Supervisors that surprised you the most? Starting with Ms. Remington.
Sorry, I gotta think on that one. I guess I can't say surprised. Sorry. I guess I can't say that there's an action that the board has taken that I can think of off the top of my head that surprises me. One of the things that I was most surprised by just in taking office was the kind of lack of any kind of orientation process for new electeds. So that is something that I have been working on. We need to really have a process through which our executive director and our frontline staff are able to help incoming electeds kind of get their feet under them and figure out how things work and what the processes internally are.
Not just like one surprise, just in general, it kind of goes back to my philosophy just about, common sense. I think there is a time and a place that can support our community members and identify them and make them feel seen in the form of resolutions or declarations, calling out our community members, saying you're seen. But resolutions where we're asking geopolitical things to happen on our behalf, I don't think does us any goodwill, and it's not a good use of our time. I don't think the Strait of Hormuz is opened. I just want to make sure that when we are doing proclamations that we're identifying our community members, making them feel seen and heard, and those are great. Like Hijab Day was great, but when we're doing things that we really have no influence over, it does surprise me.
We now move to closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Ms. Remington, your statement.
Yes. At the end of the day, this job is about responsible use of taxpayer money and about protecting our residents' welfare and whether or not people can actually live here, whether they can afford it, access what they need, and feel like their government works for them. I've built my work around supporting our residents, making systems more accessible, and making sure people don't fall through the cracks since long before I took office. And in a moment where decisions from outside our community are trying to reshape our rights, our lives, and how we're represented, it matters to have someone who knows how to navigate the systems and fight for the people who live here. That's what I've done, and it's what I'll keep doing, and your vote honored before June 2nd can help me with that. Thank you.
As a 20-year resident of Iowa City and a 15-year resident of District 5, I bring all my experience with you, to you, and where I've gotten to in my life and the things that I've built upon are not because of an identity or a thing I've done. It is because I've gotten in there, done the work, turned around, and looked at what I built. Yes, it would be nice if I was the first elected gay man as a supervisor, but that's not what this is about. I think it's about managing our budget as taxation is going to tighten and we're going to have less to collect. We got to manage our budget and spend on the things that we absolutely have to do as a county first. But then we also have to talk together as a board and work together. And I hope to bring that to the board with some measured sense of approach and calmness, and bringing in what I bring from the Iowa City Downtown District, talking to business owners, some who I don't agree with, but you have to listen to them the whole way. And at the end, you can give them a choice of what you can and cannot do for them. But I want to be respectful of all our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you to our candidates, those of you attendants, those watching at home, and the senior center and staff, and our local television stations for making this video cast and live streaming possible. We would like to remind you that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and that sponsorship of the forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. May 13th is the first day for in-person early voting, and the first day mailed ballots may be sent. June 1st is the last day for in-person early voting. Remember to vote in the primary on or before June 2nd. Thank you, everyone. Good day and good luck.